The following program, The Russ Belville Show, is intended for responsible adults only. We advocate to the repeal of marijuana prohibition for adults. We discuss the science, culture, and controversy about America's marijuana laws. We do not advocate any illegal activity and encourage all listeners to learn their state and federal marijuana laws. Opinions and claims made by guests and advertisers on The Russ Belville Show are their own, and The Russ Belville Show cannot be held legally responsible for their validity or reliability. Viewer discretion is advised.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!
Spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
From the promise of legalization.
And I think that we think it decriminalize our marijuana laws.
To the agony of prohibition.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
The Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
Yeah, I hear you had a question for me.
Now, here's your host, Radical Russ Belville.
We love it.
Good day, tokens and tokettes, and welcome. It is Tuesday, June 4th, 2013, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. Welcome to our newest remote location. We're coming to you from Gray Wolf's Den right here in Denver, Colorado, where we're enjoying our constitutional right to smoke some legal weed. Yay! Joining me here in the studio, we got Gray Wolf over here on mic number 2, and Canny is hanging out as well. Say hi.
Hey.
Everybody's having a good time. And we're also going to have a live guest coming here a little bit later at 1:30. We're going to speak with Sean Coleman. He's with 36 Solutions. He's a lobbyist at the Colorado Capitol, working with Vicente Cederberg Group, a bunch of other groups, trying to craft the regulations for America's first, or the world's first, regulated marijuana market. So we'll be talking to him live right here at Gray Wolf's Den just as soon as he makes it in here. Also on today's show, we did a show yesterday from Arrow Red Studios in Lakewood, and unfortunately we didn't get the whole thing recorded, and we missed the radical rant at the end. So I'm going to redo that radical rant today, taking a look at the recent Supreme Court decision on DNA sampling that basically says if they detain you, not even arrest you, if they detain you, they can take your DNA. We'll take a look deep inside that decision and what is so terribly wrong about it. Plus, quite a surprise about the 5-4 split on this particular decision. And speaking of 5-4 Supreme Court splits, you got to stick around for hour 2. In Toker Talk Radio, we are going to play Jerry Goldstein, the famed criminal defense attorney. He defended Manuel Noriega and plenty of other folks. He's defending some people at Gitmo, I understand. He did a speech at the Normal Aspen Legal Seminar just this weekend on the recent Supreme Court decisions and how they affect your 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendment rights. And he is just one of the most dynamic speakers. You're going to want to stay tuned for that here coming up in hour 2. Also on today's show, we've got your regular daily Toker tunes. It's Electric Tuesday. Bacon Dan is going to call in from Portland. We've got a really cool, that Psy guy, with the Gangnam Style. Well, this is kind of a mashup remix with a whole bunch of stuff thrown in it by Dan May, or Dan May. I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but we'll check that out at 20 after. But before we get to all of that, we've got to get behind the headlines. There's a new report out from the ACLU today about the racial disparity in marijuana arrests, and we'll get to your 420 radio news right after we take a break. See you live from Denver. Be right back.
It's simply business. It's simply business. It's simply business, you know why they won't let us grow. It's simply business.
We'll be right back after these messages from our 420 friendly sponsors. Support these advertisers because their ad money goes straight to the Russ Belville Show. You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
It's simply business. It's simply business. It's simply business, you know why they won't let us grow. simply business. It's simply business, you know why they won't let us grow. It's simply business.
The law offices of Omar Figueroa would like to remind you to stand up for your rights. Please do not give up your precious liberties. There's nothing wrong with standing up for our constitutional rights, and in fact, it's the only way to honor the Constitution that recognizes our natural rights. Treat law enforcement with respect and respect the Constitution by standing up for your rights. If you are detained or arrested, stand up for your rights by repeating, "I respectfully invoke all my legal and constitutional rights. I do not consent to any search and seizure. I want to remain silent, and I want to speak to my attorney, Omar Figueroa." Omar Figueroa has more than a decade of experience in federal and California courts and graduated from Yale University, Stanford Law School, and Trial Lawyers College. Please contact the law offices of Omar Figueroa at 415-489-0420 or 707-829-0215 or on the web at www.omarfigueroa.com. Now it's time for our 420 Radio News for Tuesday, June 4th, 2013. I'm Russ Belville. California medical marijuana bill fails, leaving pot industry largely unregulated. From Huffington Post. A bill aimed at bringing some clarity to medical marijuana regulation in California has failed to pass the state assembly in a vote held late last week. The legislation, which was authorized by Assemblyman Tom Amiano, would have created an agency within the state's Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control tasked with managing all medical marijuana in the state, from where it is grown all the way through to the point of sale. The bill fell 6 votes short of its 41 it needed for passage, although Amiano partially pinned the failure on a procedural snafu where he wasn't given the customary opportunity to pause in the middle of the voting process and attempt to convince more assembly members to vote his way. Despite the setback, Amiano vowed to continue to push his legislative agenda to regulate medical marijuana at the state level. His office is now looking into a number of legislative and administrative options that could theoretically get the approval for a state agency regulating medical marijuana on the governor's desk by the end of this legislative session. Medical marijuana bill wins in New York State Assembly from the Village Voice. On Monday, a bill that would allow medical marijuana use sailed through the New York State Assembly, passing with a clean 95-38. If the bill makes it through the Senate, folks with, quote, severely debilitating or life-threatening conditions, end quote, could be prescribed pot by their doctors. Yesterday's Assembly session heard many compelling arguments for medical marijuana, one of which came from Assemblywoman Deb Glick, who shared a story of her sister's chemotherapy treatment. But an unexpected anecdote came from Assemblyman Richard Gottfried, Democrat, a co-sponsor of the bill, who argued that marijuana wasn't similar to other criminalized drugs in that it was one of the most benign, clinically active substances known to humanity. Republican anti-marijuana hypocrite Steve Katz comes correct from the San Francisco Gate. New York State Assemblyman Steve Katz, an anti-marijuana Republican busted for speeding and pot possession, has changed his tune and helped to advance marijuana decriminalization in the Empire State last week. Katz voted May 30th in favor of A6716, making possession of small amounts of marijuana in public a ticketable, not arrestable offense. In 2011, Katz voted against a medical marijuana law in the New York Assembly. Katz said he broke with Republicans to vote for the bill because it, quote, seeks to reduce justice costs associated with marijuana violations, end quote. Hundreds of Georgians rally for the legalization of marijuana from rferl.org. Hundreds in the Republic of Georgia have rallied in the downtown capital to demand the legalization of marijuana. A majority of the protesters rallying in front of the old Parliament building on June 3rd were young people. Many were wearing green shirts and holding posters and placards calling on authorities to, quote, stop jailing people for smoking weeds, end quote. The protesters said they were not advertising marijuana, but protecting personal freedom of those who smoke it. Labor, Healthcare, and Social Protections Minister David Sergeyenko said in a televised statement last week that his ministry was discussing the possible legalization of marijuana with Georgia's Justice Ministry. Olympic sprinter Usain Bolt in trouble over T-shirt promoting cannabis. from Oneida News, or I'm sorry, from One India News. My apologies. Anti-drug campaigners have blasted Olympic sprint champion Usain Bolt for a picture of a T-shirt posted on the internet, which appeared to be promoting the use of cannabis. The world record holder over both the 100-meter and 200-meter distances was not wearing the T-shirts, but posed with them alongside a bed. The T-shirts are made by U.S. firm The Pothead Diaries, whose website encourages potential customers to, quote, express your inner pothead and celebrate our love for the culture, end quote. In 2009, Bolt, worth 32 million euro a year in sponsorship deals, admitted smoking dope as a youngster in Jamaica, but said it was no longer a part of his lifestyle. Minnesota's Independence Party to push for the legalization of marijuana in Minnesota, from Minnesota Public Radio. Delegates attending the Independence Party of Minnesota's state convention in St. Cloud yesterday adopted a party platform that calls for the legalization, taxation, and regulation of marijuana. The plan would put the Independence Party on the forefront of a growing national movement calling for the legalization of marijuana. No one in the Minnesota legislature proposed a bill this year that would have legalized marijuana, but there is likely to be a push next year to allow it for medicinal purposes. The Independence Party has held major party status in Minnesota since Jesse Ventura was elected governor in 1998. This has been your 420 Radio News for Tuesday, June 4th, 2013. I'm Russ Belville. When we come back, we go behind the headlines and take a look at a new ACLU report on the racial disparity in marijuana arrests. This is the Russ Belville Show on 420radio.org. We'll be right back.
Is medical marijuana right for you? When you are stricken by an illness, injury, or disability, you deserve to live your life as free from pain and suffering as possible. Modern medical researchers have developed some amazing pharmaceutical drugs, but these may not be the best solution for you. At Alternative Medical Choices, we help collect your medical records history and provide a physician's review and examination to help you qualify for the use of medical marijuana in Oregon and Washington State. Call 971-270-0262 or visit altmedchoices.com for more information and to schedule an appointment today. Alternative Medical Choices, because you deserve the best in healthcare.
Marijuana is harmless. That's what everybody says these days. It's fun. It's recreational. Some even call it medicine. But every year, millions of young people find out that marijuana is extremely dangerous. Every year they find out that it's deadly. Marijuana smoke is lethal and toxic. Don't believe anything you've ever heard positive about smoking marijuana. It will kill you. Really. It's really gonna kill you. Don't smoke it. It will really, really kill you. Seriously. It's gonna kill you.
Sir, do you think there will or should come a time for us to discuss the possibility of legalization, regulation, and control of all drugs, thereby doing away with the violent criminal market as well as a major source of funding for international terrorism? Thank you so much for your time, Mr. President.
Well, I think this is an entirely legitimate topic for debate.
Name the time and place, Mr. President. Radical Russ has been prepping for this debate full-time since 2005. The Russ Belville Show.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Time for us to go behind the headlines. It's about 15 after, and getting this from the Washington Post Wonk blog, reporting on the black-white marijuana arrest gap in 9 charts. And so we're going to run through this real quick. It's stuff that we already know, but man, when you see it posted as data, it can really just really highlight this system. Now, in our first graph, black, white one, if you pull that up there, Brian, is the graph in the years of the 2000s, comparing white folks in pink, which is actually kind of accurate, and black folks compared in their marijuana use over the past 12 months. And in 2001, white folks used it more often. Black folks used it more often throughout the rest of the years, but not a whole big difference, right? It's pretty close, statistically speaking. And in fact, when you take a look at it for the younger folks and pull that up on graph 2, you'll find that for the ages 18 to 25 use over the past 12 months, it's more white kids that are using marijuana. But again, not a huge gap here, not a big difference in the use between white folks and black folks. But, and in fact, when you pull up the third graph here, what you'll find is that more white folks have actually tried it, right? When you look at, have you ever used marijuana? Actually, this is the reverse. This is, I've never used marijuana. And that's gone from, about 66, about 2 out of 3 African-American folks from 2001 up to about 60% by the 2010. But again, a bigger number than what you see for Caucasians, for white folks. So fewer black folks as a group are ever trying marijuana. So those are your first 3 graphs, right? We got a general idea here. Use is about the same, give or take, right? Pull up graph 4. This is the graph of marijuana arrest for just possession by race, where we go from 2001 to 2010, and every single one of those black bars, if you're listening on the podcast, is at least twice as big, sometimes 3 or 4 times as big as the corresponding bar for the white people. Again, as we've known for years and years, and if you read Michelle Alexander's The New Jim Crow, you'll know this too, that the drug war, and particularly the war on marijuana, is disproportionately impacting people of color, Latinos, black folks, and in this case, we're just comparing black and white. And this is a disparity that we can see across the board on our next graph that you bring up here. And I think this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, number 5 that we bring up here. This is the bell curve showing you the distribution of racial disparity in these marijuana possession arrests. And from the left to the right, we're talking about at equal, like at number 1 there, where there's that kind of red line going down, that would be where white people and black people are being arrested in equal rates. So when you go to number 2 there, that's twice as much. When you go to number 3, that's 3 times as much, right? There are some counties in America, when you get out there to the right side of the graph, where black people are being arrested at 10 times the rate of white people. But generally the graph here in the middle, kind of the bell curve part of it, is between 2 to 4 times. That's the bulk. And the Y values on this graph are the number of counties in America. So the greatest number there, there's about 130 counties in America where it's about 3 times more likely you're going to be arrested for marijuana possession if you're black. And in our next graph, this is broken down by some of the most populous counties in the United States. Things like, Los Angeles, California, Cook County, Illinois, you're talking Chicago, right? Harris County, Texas. I believe is that the Dallas, Fort Worth area? Could be. Maricopa, Arizona, that would be Phoenix, Arizona, San Diego County, Orange County, Kings County, New York, Miami-Dade, Dallas, Texas. All of these where you see the arrest rate for black people just so much greater than the arrest rate for white people. In the next graph, we can see a lot of what is driving this. When they keep talking about the war on drugs, we're not really talking about drugs generally. We're generally talking about marijuana. The graph you see that's running from 95 across to 2010 is the proportion that marijuana makes out of all drug arrests. And looking back to 1995, about 1 out of 3 drug arrests was for marijuana. Now you get out to 2010, it's up to 45, 46%. We're talking about, more than 2 out of 5 drug arrests are for marijuana. And this is just possession. We're just talking about possession in this particular graph. Now, moving on to the 7th graph. Now, this next couple are really amazing. Massachusetts decriminalized marijuana, and you can see how the overall possessions went down 2007, 2008, and then it plummeted 2009, 2010, because you have to have over an ounce for possession, right? But in this next graph, this compares the marijuana arrest rates. And even though far fewer people got arrested for marijuana in Massachusetts after decriminalization, it was still 5 times the white arrest. So yeah, far fewer arrests, but still disproportionately impacting people of color, impacting black people up there in Massachusetts. So there's still plenty of work to be done. And this gives you kind of an idea what is still left on our agenda. All right, that's all the time we got for that. We could go for hours and hours on this, but it is 420 here in Denver, where it's legal, thanks to lots of people in this room, and we'll be talking to them when we come back.
Oh, have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. Have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. If he said he swam to China, he would sell you South Carolina. Then you know you're talking to that reefer man.
Ever wonder how often to change your bong water? The most effective method for baking pot brownies? The best destinations for a ganja getaway? How to hide herb in your car? Whether to grow your own? How precisely to legalize it? Or how something as wonderful as marijuana ever got to be illegal in the first place? Finally, you can find all these answers and much more in the official High Times Pot Smoker's Handbook, featuring 420 things to do when you're stoned. Since 1974, High Times magazine has covered marijuana in all its aspects and wonders, from cultivation to legalization to the herb's enduring and exalted place in popular culture. Packed with inside information, the official High Times Pot Smoker's Handbook rolls all of this collected wisdom together into a single indispensable ganja guide, including an entertaining look at marijuana's history, profiles of herb-friendly travel destinations and festivals, favorite potluck recipes from the High Times staff, smoking skills, advocacy and activism, essential marijuana movies and songs, profiles of famous cannabis strains, comprehensive growing information, celebrity endorsements, and much more. This is truly, finally, the ultimate guide to green living.
Everyone knows music and marijuana go together, so let's wind up our 20 after break with the Russ Belville Show's Daily Toker Tunes, the best in pod-safe 420 music from around the web. Today is Electric Tuesday, featuring the latest in electronic dance music and other cutting-edge genres. You can get downloads and more information about all our Daily Toker Tunes by visiting music.radicalruss.com. Now, sit back and enjoy your Daily Toker Tunes.
All right, one of my favorite things to get to when we do our Electric Tuesdays is the genre known as mashups. I always think it's really creative when people take a bunch of different songs and put them together and make something brand new. And we got Bacon Dan on the line from Portland, Oregon. I'm here in Denver, Colorado. How you doing, Dan?
I am doing awesome, Russ. It is absolutely beautiful here in Portland. It's almost intoxicating.
Yeah, I know. When you first moved out here from Pennsylvania, when you first moved out there from Pennsylvania, you must have thought it was just going to be gray and wet forever. Must feel good, huh?
Oh, yeah. I mean, even the gray and wet wasn't bad. I mean, if there's not 2 feet of snow on the ground, that's not really winter to me, so I'm fine.
Yeah, as long as you don't have to shovel the precipitation, it's okay, right?
Exactly.
All right. So we've got some Electric Tuesday music here. You brought us something really cool. I know that Psy is in this, but there's like a whole menu of people that's in this mashup. Why don't you tell us about it?
Well, this mashup actually, a lot of people don't know. Since I moved out here, I've been working on getting myself healthier and losing some weight. I'm actually down 28 pounds in the past about 5 months, which is awesome.
Even with the bacon maple bars?
Even with the bacon maple bars.
All right.
And this song was recommended to me for when I do my workout, and it gets me moving. It's a really good song, especially with how nice it is out now. It's just a really fun, upbeat song. I know some of my mashups that I've had previous, a little bit darker. This is just gets you moving, gets you grooving. It's so much fun.
All right. Well, who is the artist? And give us the title, and we'll roll this tune.
Well, that would be Dan May. He is getting a little bit big in the Europe scene with the mashups out there, and the song title is Good Time Gangnam Style.
All right, let's get it on. Good Time Gangnam Style.
Oppan Gangnam Style. Gangnam Style.
You know I'm not one to break promises. I don't want to hurt you, but I need to breathe. 'Cause it's always a good time. At the end of it all, still my best friend. But there's something inside that I need to release. 'Cause it's always a good time.
Oppan Gangnam Style.
Oh, Black Betty, bam a lamb. Whoa, Black Betty, bam a lamb. Black Betty had a child. Bam a lamb, the damn thing gone wild. Bam a lamb, she said a word out of mine. Bam a lamb, the damn thing gone mine. Bam a lamb, I said, oh, Black Betty, bam a lamb. Whoa, Black Betty, bam a lamb.
Oppan Gangnam Style.
Oh, Black Betty, bam a lamb. Whoa, Black Betty, bam a lamb. She really gets me high. Bam a lamb, you know that's no lie. Bam a lamb, she's so hot-headed. Bam a lamb, and she's always ready. Bam a lamb. Whoa, Black Betty, bam a lamb. Whoa, Black Betty, bam a lamb.
I stole from my little sister.
I got straight D's.
I left my ex-girlfriend 27 messages last night.
I made my mother cry.
I let people draw on me.
I ditched my friends and let them find their own way home.
Georgia.
Hi, this is Willie Nelson, and I need your help. Our marijuana laws are terribly unfair, and they make criminals out of law-abiding citizens. Nearly 2,000 Americans are arrested every day on marijuana charges, and we are unfairly destroying the lives and careers of hundreds of thousands of people simply because they smoke marijuana. These are not criminals. They are average citizens like you, good neighbors who work hard, raise families, pay taxes, and contribute to their communities. And it's time we stopped arresting responsible marijuana smokers. We need your help to end marijuana prohibition once and for all. It's the fair thing to do.
For more information, contact NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. Call toll-free 888-67-NORML or visit their website at norml.org.
Activism begins with ACT. The Russ Belville Show features the stories of hardworking grassroots activists working for an end to prohibition in today's activist agenda.
All right, welcome back, everybody. And on today's show, joining us live here at Grey Wolf's Den, we've got Sean Coleman. He is a lobbyist with 36 Solutions based in Denver, worked a lot on all this Amendment 64 stuff. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Russ. Good to see you.
Wow, glad to have you here. And, we were going to talk about some of the new regulations that we've got here in Colorado. They just recently passed. I just did a Behind the Headlines segment on some of these racial disparities that were just disgusting. So let's take it away. I mean, how are these regulations impacting Denver in general and just, the racial justice issue in Denver in particular?
Well, it was interesting, and I'm really glad you brought up those data points because Yesterday, the Denver City Council took its first move towards implementing Amendment 64 and allowing retail business. But Councilmember Lopez, one of his key concerns was proliferation in his district, which, he's Hispanic. He has a predominantly Hispanic and minority representation. And one of his key issues was that, look, I look around my community, and all the liquor stores are owned by someone who lives somewhere else.
Right.
And one of the, there's a lot of good things that happen in our regulatory bills. What I feel was one of the setbacks in the regulatory bill was this continued prohibition on people who've had a prior drug felony on their record from owning a business. It defies logic when you say that someone who was convicted of rape, who was convicted of a violent crime, sure, come right ahead. You and your guns, come on and open a medical marijuana dispensary or a retail marijuana dispensary. But if you are a person who is going to the state of Colorado saying, hey, look, I'd like a license to do exactly what I went to jail for, because the jury that actually matters, which is the voters, have said by a greater margin than elected the president in the state that is now illegal activity. Oh, no. You can't be a business owner. So, if you really thinking about how this process moves forward, unless we make the social justice changes, it's a hollow victory.
Yeah.
I mean, you cannot continue to, what this really needs to be about, take it away from talking about the economic benefits, which are good, and no, it's not to belittle them. It's to say that if you continue to have a scenario where you, as a person who might have had a felony in your record, is unable to find employment, to own a business, to be able to become a contributing member of society, doing something that is safer than having a liquor store or a bar, that's patent madness. And, in my view, it's a hollow victory. And that's why, these bills were a first step. I'll let you jump in here in a second, but there are a couple other aspects too, where I think that as an industry, as a movement, we are going to really need to really keep guard and not only hold our wins, but keep pushing the envelope forward, because the private prison treatment industrial complex is realizing that one of their biggest cash cows, that first time possession charge, now that that's gone, they're looking for other ways to raise revenue.
Yeah.
When they're talking about, for the kids are talking about is their children's college tuition bills.
Yeah. And I've heard this coming from the rehab people, the Project Sam people. One point Kevin Sabet tried to make in a recent Baker Institute blog was how marijuana legalization may be bad for civil rights, in that same thing your Latino assembly person was saying, that once big marijuana takes over, it's going to, all their stores are going to be in the minority neighborhoods and in the smaller neighborhoods, and try to, take that money away. And there's that fear of taking advantage. I find it patently ridiculous to think that people would prefer to be arrested rather than have a store in their neighborhood.
That's absolutely right. And also, I mean, next legislative, I mean, what did happen was, where they started was that it was going to be a permanent ban on drug felons. Now it's moved to this weird 5 years from now, unless it was 10 years old. And it's a little wonky, but hopefully, since there's a delay in new applicants anyway in our state bill, hopefully we'll be able to get that fixed next session, because the reality is that unless we fix our state law in terms of the suitability requirements, it's going to only ensure that that's the case. But if we fix this, then these small businesses will be owned by people in their own communities. And that is what this is supposed to be about. This is about allowing people who want to provide employment opportunities for their community, who want to invest in their community, being able to do so, regardless of the fact that they were caught up as a victim of the drug war. When Kevin Sabat and Project Smart, and by the way, those folks, they claim to be this grassroots organization. Well, they spent, $40,000 in April on lobbying the General Assembly. So that's, I would call that, at best, grassroots turf.
Yeah.
But,
and what I could do with 40 grand?
Well, look, you can go to the Secretary of State and see what I mean. Lobbying on the right side of history and the right side of what the voters of Colorado said, but it's far less than 40 grand.
Yeah, no kidding.
So, one of the issues, one of the things they try to do, because they are concerned about their bottom line as the private prison and treatment industrial complex, is they try to pass this insane law that would say, well, it's all fine and good that the Colorado voters said that growing 6 plants of marijuana in your home is acceptable under and a constitutionally protected right. But when it comes to child endangerment, we're going to use the federal law. So if someone can come into your house and say, you see your 6 plants, and the list of people that are mandatory reporters, school teachers, doctors. So when your kid, Johnny on the playground, says, hey, my mom and dad, they're growing 3 plants. Well, out from the house comes your kids if that law had passed. What we did, which was a little clever, is that we offered an amendment that said that in order for it to meet the standard of taking the child away from the home, that it would, instead of the word just being use of or possession of a controlled substance, it would have to be abuse. And there is actually a statute in Colorado law that defines what abuse means. And that statute, and again, this just shows the disingenuous nature of their policy positions. Then what this abuse standard says, well, in order for it to be considered abuse, it would have to be negatively impacting the person's social and economic circumstance, conjunctive, working together.
Okay.
That means if you are a single mom whose job happens to be working at a retail marijuana store, that your access and possession of marijuana is actually improving your social and economic standing. Therefore, we can't take your kids away. Okay. And once that happened, they brought down their own bill because this was not about protecting children. This is about protecting their ability to pay their children's college tuitions. So we have a lot of work to do ahead of us. I think that, again, I hope everyone really tries to remember, especially when you're talking about other states, moving forward and folks telling those states to use caution, which, I live here in Colorado. I care a passion what goes on in Colorado. What goes on in other people's states, I feel like is their business. They should be able to decide. But, the folks who want to continue to throw people in cages, separate families, and create the economic devastation that they claim that they're trying to prevent in minority communities, they are passionate. They are going to continue working, and we're going to have to continue to work very vigorously to make sure that as we're moving forward, that this victory isn't hollow by making sure that the social justice aspects of it are fixed along the way.
Yeah, and what you bring up with the child endangerment, reaching out to the federal statute in order to circumvent what the people of a state have decided. We see this in a lot of circumstances. The one I saw recently was that decision on Colorado's lawful off-duty statute and whether or not, use of illegal marijuana now was something you could be fired over. And this court decision said, yes, they can, because it's federally illegal. And so many other decisions. I was speaking to these lawyers in Aspen about this. I see so many decisions that come out that say the feds cannot force the state to enforce a particular federal law.
Right.
Except for this one, this roundabout way.
Right.
What's happening? I know Kimberly Ryan, the lawyer who's drafting, the appeal to this. What can you do at the legislative level, or is there something you can do at the legislative level about this?
Well, what you can do at the legislative level is not enact these laws. I mean, what you could do is whether you're, here's another example. The DOID law that passed.
Right.
Well, that's all fine and good for the casual stoner who, is doing something they shouldn't have been doing and, got into an accident or what have you. But if you're a medical marijuana patient, if you end up on probation, you will not be able to use your medicine.
Right.
Because under Colorado law, as a condition of probation, you're not allowed to violate state or federal law. So these are things that we need to fix. We do have the ability within our state to say, okay, the conditions of our probation in our state that, when it comes to things that are expressly legal and constitutionally protected under our state law, those are okay activities. That's because we're not just talking about marijuana DUI. Let's say if you're a medical marijuana patient who, for whatever reason, got caught up in any number of legal troubles that may have had nothing to do with substance use at all. Then you are prohibited from using the thing that's keeping you well. And these are, among many, many issues that we need to continue to focus on.
Yes, absolutely. And we are, again, speaking with Sean Coleman, a lobbyist in Colorado. And what is that process like, becoming a lobbyist? I mean, we talk about lobbyists, and people, I think, imagine the guy in the Armani suit. I guess that's on the other side, right?
That's right. That's the oil and gas people. So, my background is I live in Boulder. I ran for city council in Boulder back in 2005 because I was mad about something. So I decided to get involved. I ended up going to D.C. I worked for Congressman Jared Polis in his congressional office in Washington, D.C. I worked on marijuana policy and banking. I helped him draft that first banking bill that he introduced a couple of years ago. if you're listening, no matter where you're in the country, Congressman Pulse's Bill H.R. 499, which is the federal regulate marijuana like alcohol bill. Go online, see if your member of Congress is a co-sponsor of that bill. If not, call, email every day until they become one.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I got my background working in marijuana policy, working for Congressman Polis. And I got back to Colorado. I was an in-house lobby for a bank that was servicing the industry for a while. Now I'm working on the marijuana issue as well as other issues here on the state level. And I got to tell you, when you look at the dysfunction of Congress, the fact that, Truman ran against Congress, the do-nothing Congress that passed 960 bills. This year, Congress has passed 10.
Wow.
The reality is that on whether you're talking about any social issue, whether it's marijuana policy, immigration, gay rights, all these issues are going to be resolved at the state level. And, people always make an analogy, particularly on marijuana, to alcohol prohibition. It's the same in the sense that it's a law that no one follows because no one believes it makes sense. But in terms of how we get a federal response, the actual analogy is the Civil War. And I don't mean to say that it's people are going to take to arms, but what I do mean to say is what you had in the Civil War was a critical mass of states that disagreed with the federal government that agreed with each other. In terms of marijuana, we're at 2 states that completely disagree on the prohibition. We're at 19 that disagree in terms of medical use. That is about to be 21 if Illinois' governor signs the bill, and the New Hampshire legislature passed their bill, which the governor there said she would sign. The sticking point in New Hampshire's bill is about home cultivation. My advice to our friends in arms in New Hampshire is let it go. Get the bill passed. Get the bill passed because, again, the federal government doesn't distinguish between medical and recreational. Doesn't distinguish between home grows or dispensaries. What they distinguish between is, do these states disagree with us and fundamentally agree with each other?
Mm-hmm.
So, if Illinois' bill gets signed, if New Hampshire's bill finally gets signed, and we're looking pretty good in New York, that would make 22. First of all, we're going to be well over a critical mass of the population of the country that lives in a state with liberalized marijuana laws. We're already there if you're talking about just levels of decriminalization or reducing penalties, where that number is up to 26. But you're going to get to a point where, rather I should say it this way, Congress passionately doesn't care about marijuana policy. If we had real enemies, we would actually have solutions, but no one cares. Because
it's apathy more than opposition.
It's apathy more than opposition. Because look, they can't keep the lights on. They haven't passed the budget in 6 years.
Yeah.
The IRS is being investigated.
DOJ got his hands full.
They're a little busy. So they don't care. So, when we get to that critical mass of states and we have the right members who are the chairs of the right committees, this war on marijuana is going to end in a puff instead of a bang. I suspect that the bill that defederalizes, Congress is not going to get involved in the hearings and science and data to legalize medical marijuana or recreational marijuana. They're going to say, just like alcohol, it's not up to us anymore. It's up to the states to decide how they want to do it. They'll defederalize it. That's what Congressman Bill H.R. 49 does. And, that kind of legislation, when the time is right, will pass on a quiet Tuesday afternoon under suspension of the rules. That way, no one has to give a press conference. No one has to send out a press release because no one wants to talk about it because that's not why they got elected.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we could keep going, but we got to wrap this segment up. Sean Coleman, I want to thank you for coming in.
Hey, good to see you again.
Talk about this. We'll get you back on again soon. We got a radical rant coming up.
After these messages from our 420 friendly sponsors. Support these advertisements because their ad money goes straight to the Russ Belville Show. You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
Cast your eyes up to the skies. What is it to live and die?
NORMAL stands for Responsible Adult Cannabis Use. If cannabis use is causing problems in your life, consider taking a break or seeking medical assistance. Consider ceasing cannabis use if you have a family history of mental illness. Don't drive or operate heavy machinery while impaired by cannabis use. Cannabis use is not without risks, even though the risks are far less than those posed by legal drugs.
Jive, Mari, Grifo, grass, hay. Technically, it's cannabis sativa, the common name, marijuana. She has found a crutch to see her through her difficulties instead of facing up to them and coping with them. And in time, she may be ready to try something different, something better.
You want answers? I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore. You want answers?
You have offended my family.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth.
And you have offended a Shaolin temple.
You can't handle the truth.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Radical rant.
All right, I took a little time yesterday to discuss this recent Supreme Court decision, the King case, Maryland v. King. And if you want to get a fantastic talk on recent Supreme Court decisions that have to do with the 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendment, stick around. At the top of the next hour, we're going to play Jerry Goldstein's presentation from Aspen. It's amazing. It's incredibly entertaining. He'll make you laugh at the Supreme Court, which, given some of their decisions, not too hard to do. But this one is the Maryland v. King case. And just to reiterate for folks that missed the show yesterday, we're re-recording this because we had lost the recording. But in this case, it was a man in Maryland who'd been arrested for brandishing a shotgun at 6 people, and he was arrested on an assault, right? And they brought him in, and they did a DNA cheek swab to get the saliva off the cheek, and then they went and matched that against a database of, cold cases. About 3 days later, they come up with a hit from a rape that had been committed 6 years before, and he subsequently got convicted on both of these charges. And the case here hinged on whether or not taking DNA from a suspect not related to a particular crime, but just in general, right? Because generally the 4th Amendment's all about having a reason to believe someone's committed a particular crime, and then you're going to seize whatever it might be that's in the warrant. No, this was somebody who's merely being detained for a different crime. And so the case came down. It was a 5-4 decision. The majority decision was authored by Justice Kennedy. And Kennedy, in his decision, in his opinion, said the police only take DNA to determine who a suspect is. And part of that process of identification is finding out what other crimes that person may also have committed, identifying him as the potential perpetrator of other offenses. That identification may be relevant to decisions about whether to free the suspect on bail. If the identification leads to new prosecution, well, that's just the way the evidence points. But this is kind of a stretch on the definition of identification. And the biggest problem I have with this is his comparison in this case. In fact, he actually compared the taking of someone's DNA to the taking of fingerprints, or this was his actual quote: "Taking and analyzing a cheek swab of the arrestee DNA is like fingerprinting and photographing, a legitimate police booking procedure that is reasonable under the 4th Amendment." Now, the problem I have with this is that there's a significant difference between our DNA and a fingerprint and a photograph. A fingerprint is the residual evidence that we may have been at a location, that our particular identifying characteristics have left their trace there. In the case of a photograph, we're bouncing photons off of us and recording it on a digital medium or film or whatever it might be. In the case of DNA, that is us. That's our programming. That's our genetic code. This is our actual body that we're talking about at the smallest particular division that can be made. And generally the court, the Supreme Court, has ruled in cases that had to do with, blood draws and such, that there has to be a much higher bar to clear to be able to take a suspect's blood or urine or other bodily fluids. And DNA would be no different. Kennedy seems to hinge his decision on this idea that is very inobtrusive. Oh, it's just a little cheek swab. It's no big intrusion, except for the fact it's the identifying genetic characteristics of you. And we've been raised lately in this CSI, Law and Order TV culture to believe that DNA evidence is somehow perfect. It's just the magic bullet that automatically determines who's guilty or innocent of a crime, without taking into account that there's a whole bunch of humans involved in this process, and humans are corruptible. And there's probably more than one person sitting on a death row whose DNA evidence was placed there. It's definite possibility. So I don't have this trust the cops are going to safeguard this important information. And I am joined in this opinion by the 4 dissenting judges, 3 of whom I expected, Justice Sotomayor, Justice Kagan, and Justice Ginsburg. But man, it makes my skin crawl to know I'm on the same side of this issue as Justice Antonin Scalia. Oh, man. Oh, even a stop clock is right twice a day. Here's Justice Scalia's argument in his dissent. He says, quote, "Make no mistake about it. Because of today's decision, your DNA can be taken and entered into a national database if you are ever arrested, rightly or wrongly, and for whatever reason. This will solve some extra crimes, to be sure, but so would taking your DNA when you fly on an airplane. Surely TSA must know the identity of the flying public. For that matter, so would taking your children's DNA when they start public school," end quote. Now, before we let Scalia off the hook for, being Scalia, let's not forget that he was the 5th and deciding vote on another opinion written by Justice Kennedy that said if you're arrested for any charge, no matter how small, could be a parking violation, traffic violation, if you're arrested for any reason, cops have the right to strip search and body cavity search you. So, take it with a grain of salt. It seems weird that Scalia's got no problem with the cops slapping on the rubber gloves and making you sing Moon River, but he's got a problem with the cheek swab if you're detained. But hey, I'll take my Scalia, standing up for the 4th Amendment where I can get it, right? So in this, and when are you ever going to get a decision that's got Scalia on the same side as the 3 ladies on the bench is just amazing. Now, according to the statistics that we've got here, there are already 1.3 million arrested suspects and 10 million convicted people nationwide whose DNA has been collected. This is according to the FBI's data. And now this has been accepted as constitutional when people are arrested or people are convicted of a crime. But what this Maryland King case is talking about is just merely being detained. And if we've seen from the history of how drug testing, once it was accepted by the courts at it's only going to be for the train operators and the pilots and the sensitive transportation positions, and how that slippery slope eroded to the point where we've got 11-year-old girls trying out for viola in the school orchestra that have to take a P test to make sure, they don't, bow backwards or something. I don't know. That slippery slope's gone all the way. What do you think is going to happen here when Kennedy, who says this is, it's only for serious crimes? Yeah, we will quickly see as police take this new opportunity to bag and tag us, to collect as much database DNA as they can. You're quickly going to see our rights erode in this situation. The American Civil Liberties Union on this case, they weighed in on this. They were the amicus brief in opposition. The legal director, Stephen Shapiro, said the ruling eliminated a crucial safeguard by allowing police to conduct a search without having the individualized suspicion that the suspect is linked with a particular crime. It's a fishing expedition is what it is. Anybody we can arrest, or anybody we can detain, we can take their DNA to find out if they are part of some other crime. Now, also looking back to Kennedy's opinion here, he keeps resting this on the idea that it's like fingerprinting or just simply identifying a suspect. But the problem is we've already got fingerprints and photographs that identify the suspect before we get to the point of the DNA. Scalia points out that fingerprints and photographs do not involve, quote, an intrusion into the body. The majority keeps saying it's a negligible intrusion. But again, how negligible doesn't matter. This is your body they're intruding on the mere suspicion, on merely being detained. Now, the Maryland law, as it's written, there are some important points we should get out here. It says in the Maryland law, only those suspected of serious crimes can be swabbed. And in Maryland, they actually have the definition of that. It's like rape and murder and, the bad ones. The profiles must be discarded if the suspect is acquitted of the crime of arrest or if the charges are dismissed. And in any case, the DNA profiles are stored as numbers that contain no medical information. It's another fear a lot of people have is, these genetic databases going to tell people any particular disorder you might have, and that might be some medically sensitive information. Scalia has, of course, like I said, rejected this. He actually read his opinion, his dissenting opinion, out loud in the court. And he says this, quote, "At the end of the day, logic will out. When there comes before us the taking of DNA from an arrestee for a traffic violation, the court will predictably and quite rightly say, quote, we can find no significant difference between this case and King. Make no mistake about it, as an entirely predictable consequence of today's decision, your DNA can be taken and entered into a national DNA database if you are ever arrested, rightly or wrongly, and for whatever reason." And we are, again, talking about a situation, if you saw behind the headlines, where these laws are being disproportionately impacting the minority communities. This amounts to nothing more than a big dragnet of the usual suspects. A fine way for corrupt cops to be able to plant evidence on people. We've got to fight back against this. And with these kind of decisions, it really just comes down to the legislative process at this point. There needs to be, in this new era, a way of looking back at our Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights and what they mean in a digital and highly technological world. This was something that was brought up at the Aspen seminar with respect to, for example, the laws that govern the privacy of your email were written in 1986. They're written back when email was something that was stored on a corporate server. And in fact, there's laws on that have to do with if it's over 6 months old, the government can look at it because it's considered abandoned. Right? And these were written in 86 before we had the cloud and we had Gmail and servers up there that were storing all of our technical information, our contacts, our data. We need a serious overhaul of a lot of these laws. And this King case, this Maryland v. King case, and whether or not our DNA is private. They're looking at this as if it's identification, and it's so much more than that. It's our actual genetic code. It's what makes us us. And you got to understand, when these precedents are set now, you got to look forward to the unintended consequences of what may happen in the future. If you've been following this technology of 3D printing, it's gotten a lot of play lately about the making of the 3D gun. Did you know they can make 3D organs? Yeah, they can actually make a lattice work upon which they can 3D print our own cells in order to rebuild organs for people and skin grafts and things like that. So imagine that genetic code is now in the government's hands, and the technology exists to reproduce your blood, your tissue, your semen, anything they would want to. This becomes a scary precedent to be set. Start thinking about your privacy laws, start thinking about your privacy rights, and make sure you're speaking with your elected officials and let them know how important this is to you. This is bigger than just the marijuana issue. I often say on this show that the marijuana prohibition is just a symptom of a much greater problem in this country. And this is another one, this eroding of our civil liberties, of our rights, of understanding what makes America great and what gives us our privacy and our freedom in this country. And if this doesn't scare you, I don't know what does. Get involved with this. Talk to your congressman. I've got a lot of links up at the Radical Russ news site. If you go radicalruss.com or news.radicalruss.com, should take you to our links. Links to all of these stories are available for you if you want to get more research and information in. All right, that's all the time I got for today's show. Thanks for joining us. Stay tuned for Hour 2. In Toker Talk Radio, we're going to show that presentation from Jerry Goldstein up at Aspen about the interesting 5-4 Supreme Court decisions. I want to thank Sean Coleman, my guest, for being in here. Thanks, Sean, for joining us. Grey Wolf for having us in here, and Kenny for bringing the treats. That's all the time we got. Stay tuned for Hour 2, and until next time, take care of each other, Tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down to